Daraa is where Syria's uprising began, but it was in this same area that last month government forces snuffed out the opposition, part of a recent run of victories. Having hammered insurgent groups in the south of the country, they're heading north, preparing for a big push into the last enemy enclave. The battlefield picture has been transformed during the past 18 months. The high watermark of Syrian rebellion came in the latter part of 2012, with substantial parts of several cities, from Aleppo to Homs, Daraa in the south, and Hama just north of Homs there, under opposition control. And big swathes of the countryside, particularly in the north and east, also lost. The government in pink there held perhaps 30% of Syria. Foreign efforts to support rebel groups focused on so-called liberated zones along the Turkish border and the Jordanian frontier to the south there. There, the Americans, Saudis, Turks and Qataris sent in weapons to rival factions, assistance that hindered the cause of rebel unity rather than helping it.
Different Western countries thought that by supporting the opposition in Syria, to the extent that it did not overwhelm the regime, but stayed there to kind of put pressure on the regime, would be the way to push this conflict towards a negotiation and therefore a settlement. But this was a big miscalculation, and what it ended up doing instead is increasing factionalization in Syria, as different people on the ground, whether armed or non-armed, were looking for external patrons to support them without coordinating with one another.
Western countries and their Gulf allies have conceded this battle in stages. Their acceptance that President Bashar al-Assad could not be forced from office was long in coming, but effectively an admission that he couldn't be defeated by force of arms.
The United States and our partners are not seeking so-called regime change, as it is known, in Syria. What we have said is that we don't believe that Assad himself has the ability to be able to lead the future Syria.
Russia's intervention changed the calculus, as has substantial Iranian help. These developments have allowed Damascus to gain battlefield momentum. The battle to reclaim the country went in phases, focusing first on rebel districts in Homs and Aleppo, then last year reconquering the east, and this year driving the rebels first out of eastern Ghouta, just under the wording that says Damascus there, and then from Daraa, bordering the Israeli-held Golan Heights and Jordan in the far south of the country. Each offensive followed a similar pattern. Districts were pummeled until local people turned on the armed groups, made reconciliation agreements with the authorities, and the gunmen were then bussed out. Most of them were taken to Idlib province, marked in blue there in the north, just to the south and west of Aleppo. The government, having eliminated other pockets of resistance one by one, can now focus its forces there for what many are calling the final battle. In conquering, though, the Syrian army has left many depopulated wastelands, whole neighbourhoods shattered, and half the population displaced. Territorial victory does not yet equal a win over hearts and minds.
The regime is not making it easy for people to return from outside Syria. For example, people are subjected to very tough security screenings that is ending up in some people being detained, and this is deterring people from coming back. And that's why the regime victory is not meant to enable Syrian refugees to come back to Syria. If anything, the regime is working hard to keep these people outside of Syria.
Government supporters' social media accounts talk about a battle already beginning for Idlib, but the struggle for national reconstruction and healing has barely started.